Hi, I'm Valerie and today I'm making Lavender and Fern. This is a quick Ohio Star wall hanging inspired by early spring, soft florals, fresh color, and a layout that comes together easily. Let's get started. For Lavender and Fern, I have this beautiful fat quarter pack. There's 19 fat quarters. This is a Benartex Whispering Lilies by Jackie Robinson. First thing I'm going to do is prepare my fat quarters. I'm going to iron each one out and then we're going to get started with cutting. For this project we just need simple quilting tools, a cutting mat, which can be small, we only have fat quarters, not full width of fabric, a ruler, and a rotary cutter with a nice sharp blade. Here's all of the fat quarters pressed flat. I decided not to wash these. They are a wall hanging, not a bed quilt, so it'll be fine. And when you do wash them, you kind of lose a little bit of the edge, and I want to use some of these full fat quarters for the pieces. I'm also adding just a small amount of this ivory, and that's only because I don't have quite enough of this lightest color in the collection to do both the black background and white background Ohio Stars. I'm starting with the quarter square triangles, and these are the three shades I need for the dark background. There's this lovely soft gray, the medium yellow, and the light green. I'm using the 18-inch width because that's I can get the most without wasting my fabric. Now I'm going to just cut these one at a time. I folded it in half. I line it up perfectly. Now I'm just going to take the tiniest sliver from here, and I'm going to cut one strip to get started. That's one white strip. One light green strip. And I need two of the medium yellow strips. This is where the fun part comes. Lay two medium yellow, and then right sides together, lay a light green on top of one of them, and the light color on top of the other. Now we're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch on both sides of these strips. And then when you turn it around, just stitch down the other side. I like to give these strips a bit of a press here, and that just sets the seam. See how they're a little wrinkled, and I'll smooth it right out. It's hard to tell from the back, but that's actually the green one. And this is my ivory. This one is actually the very light gray that came with the collection. Let's trim off those raw edges. I'll just set that one aside. Line this up. You see we have a nice diagonal on the board. We're going to cut the diagonal right along here. That's just about right because I want this about 2 3/4 inches. I'm just doing one of them to start with of each strip. There, make sure it's cut all the way through. Line the strip up nice and straight along here and here with the diagonal running right through there. And do a nice straight cut. And I'm just doing one of each because I want to make sure they are cut the right direction. Just gently pull those stitches out. And there we see we have half of our quarter square triangle. And same with the other one. Those stitches come right out. And turn it around that way. You need to have the medium yellow on opposite sides. And then we're gonna, when we have them all cut out, we're gonna stitch this 1/4 of an inch together. Press, and we'll press them both toward the medium yellow so that they lock together really nice. Okay, now let's keep cutting because we know we've got these the right direction. So when you're doing these, make sure you have the light color facing up on both of them. I'm just gonna bring this down so it touches this line and it's straight. And we still see that's about 2 3/4 inches. And then we do a straight cut. And then we just go back and forth across the whole strip and keep cutting. I stitched and trimmed one block before I cut them all out. And this is a technique I always recommend because if you have something measured a little wrong or you cut it a little wrong, you only ruin one, you don't lose a whole batch. And I have done this on every block and quilt I've done in many a year, and it's a really good idea to reduce your risk. So this is what we're going to end up with. This is the medium yellow and light gray. This is the medium yellow and green. And now I'm just going to press these open. Remember, just gently pull that apart and give it a light press. This is a great little iron. It's called Steam Fast. I've had lots of viewers ask me about this. I just bought it at Walmart, and I can't remember if it was in the sewing section or the laundry section, but it was just a very cute little travel iron and very inexpensive, and it's really good by just set up beside your sewing machine and to do little pressing jobs like this one. Press all the cream ones. They all get pressed toward the medium yellow. And then once we have them all pressed, we're going to stitch them together. Now that I have them all pressed, I'm just going to line them up and do a little assembly line piecing. Those seams lock, 1/4 inch seam. Here's another great tip for when you press these open. Just flip it over, and the long edge, just pry those open. See where they're stitched. And there's a few stitches that'll just come loose. This one presses toward that direction, and this one presses the opposite direction, and you have this little pinwheel in the middle. And this is going to lay really flat. And then you just turn it over. Be careful, these long edges are on the bias, so they will stretch. So do your best to just press straight down so you're not stretching those bias edges. Now I'm just going to press each one of these the same, and then we're going to trim them. One more close-up look at this seam and how we laid it flat. This was the long edge. It's the medium yellow that we just pull those stitches out and lay one side this way and the other side this way. So the seams are laying opposite, and see how nice and flat that lays. We have to trim these down to exactly 3 inches square. And we do that, sometimes I have a Tucker trimmer 3. I don't have that ruler with me today. So I'm just using a regular ruler and the 45-degree angle on it. Find the 45-degree angle and then find the 1.5 inches. There's the 1.5 inches line right there. Line the 45-degree line up with that seam and make sure that the 1.5 inch from here to here is running right through the center. And then trim that edge. And we're going to do that on all 4 sides. There's the 45-degree line. There's the 1.5 inches right there, right dead center. Make sure you get that line right along the diagonal. The edge you just cut, make sure it lines up with that bottom straight line on the ruler. And then make sure you cut through all layers. On the 3rd side, same thing, 1.5 inches. We've got 2 edges to align this time. One last. we'll have 3 edges lining up. 1.5 inches right in the center and this diagonal on that line. Trim all of the 1/4 square triangle blocks just like that. Once they're all trimmed, we move on to the 1/2 square triangles in the corners of the Ohio star. We have some 1/2 square triangles to make, and I'm going to show you a really fun technique to make a whole batch of them at once. I have cut 2 rectangles. One of them is the mauve color that's in one side of the 1/2 square triangle, and the other is the light gray. I've cut them the same size, and they are right sides together, so you have to be very careful to put them right sides together. There's a template in the pattern. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can pick up the pattern. And I've drawn, just with a regular pencil, a grid. And I've also drawn diagonal lines, so you'll see a single line along here, and then I've got vertical lines. Those are cutting lines. And I've also drawn diagonal, which is also a cutting line. What I'm going to do is stitch 1/4 inch from the diagonal cutting line on both sides. And I just stitch all of that all together. I will do a little hop over. See, there's a corner here. I don't want to stitch over that. I'll stop here and I'll just hop over, and I'll show you that when I do it. Then once I get that all stitched, I'm going to cut on the cutting lines, and we will have all of these 1/2 square triangles done. There's my diagonal line. That's the cutting line. And you don't have to draw the stitching line if you have a 1/4 inch foot, but I did just to show you the 1/4 inch lines. And I'm just going to start stitching right along here. Just turn it around and stitch down the other side. That goes really, really fast. These are really fun to do and so quick. Just line it up on the line that you drew, and that takes away all those threads and everything. Just going to turn my mat this direction so I can get the long end. Let's cut the first batch. See, there's my cutting line, and we'll see what they look like. I can get 20 1/2 square triangles from this. Let's cut those 2 apart. Then we just cut them on that diagonal cutting line right down the center. And that gives me one nice tidy little 1/2 square triangle. You can stack them like that. Just make sure you get them lined up just right. Look how fast that was to make 20 1/2 square triangles. I will take them to the iron and press them, I think, toward the mauve. I do need to trim them, but I'm not going to trim them yet. I'm going to trim them after I stitch them onto the 1/4 square triangles. See, they will go like this. And I'm going to stitch these 2 seams, and then I'll trim the whole unit. I just took a minute and cut my inside patch, and I just need 5 of them, 1 per block. Now I'm just going to lay these out. That's my center. Place the 1/4 square triangles with the green triangle facing in. There. Now don't get them that way. You'll have to pick it out. I've done that before. I need 4 1/2 square triangles, and they go around the outside with the purple facing out. There. Now I'm going to stitch these 3 rows before I put them together in a full block. When I piece these together, I want to align this top row where the triangles meet, so I will have the proper 1/4 inch spacing here, because I'm going to trim that bottom off, and I'm going to trim the 2 outside edges off if required. And so I'm just going to take them off to the sewing machine and be right back. Now I'm just going to trim these to exactly what they need to be. And I'm going to start at the top edge. And that'll take the dog ears off, and it's going to straighten the top edge up. Make sure the edge of the fabric lines up straight with this line. And then take that extra braid off. I just need to make sure that it's the right size. And I can see I'm going to have to trim a little bit. So that's 2.5. That should be 2 3/4. Do the other side. While I was at it, I stitched the other 2 1/4 square triangles to the center. I pressed these toward the half square triangles in the center toward the inside block. Now I'm just going to stitch the 3 rows together. One more reminder, make sure you get those green triangles facing in. And I have this stitched. I'm just pressing this now. And this block is almost finished. I've just got the sash to do around the Ohio star and then our triangles on the outside, because this little star is going to actually sit on point, which just means diagonally. This is the lovely purple I'm using for the sash. Trimming it up so it's perfectly straight. This back corner was off by a bit. I need 4 sash for each block, and I have 5 of these blocks, and that means I can get 2 from each strip. And one of them is 8 inches, the other's 9 inches. So I'm going to cut 10 of these, which will give me my 20 strips. I'm just going to make 1 block worth like I always do. I just need to make sure that's 18. Let me just fold it in 2. I'll snip that with my nice sharp scissors. There I have the sashes for all 4 sides. That one's a bit, these 2 are too long. We'll just trim them after we stitch them on. And then these go on the other side. That was quick. I just stitched sashes on the 2 ends, and then the other 2 ends, I press them all toward the sash so all of these seams can lay flat. And I just have a little dog ear there that was a little bit too long. Now I can move on to the final step for this lovely block, which is the triangle corners. I've cut 2 squares, 1 each from my 2 different black prints. And then I just need to cut them diagonally. I'll use my board for that. Then I'm just going to do a nice cut right down the diagonal. Take 2 of the triangles of the same print and just place them on either end, centered so that this is in the center, and stitch them on either side. And then we do the same with the other side. And we're going to press toward the triangles. I've got my black triangle corners all attached, and I'm ready to move on to the same block with the white background. The steps for the white background are identical to the other block. I just want to show you the color choices I made. I still use the light green for these little triangles, and here this is this lovely mauve and a cream background with a nice green sash around it that, since this is a collection, it matches the ferns and these lovely lilac fabrics. And when I bring them together, you have this beautiful contrast of the yellow and mauve, and then the mauve and green, and the contrast between the light and dark just jumps right out. This will be a lovely, vibrant wall hanging to decorate a room. So to piece them together, my collection had these 2 different white prints. One was the lilac, one was the fern. I put them opposites on both of the blocks, and I'm going to line them up so that all the lilacs are on the same left corner and all the fern are on the right corner, just to give it some symmetry across all of the blocks. And then I just fit them together, match that point, stitch 1/4 of an inch, very straightforward from there, piecing all 9 blocks together. And then we'll move on to the border. I've added 3 narrow borders. The first one is a bright yellow, and that's to enhance the yellow stars in the center. And then I've added gray and that lovely purple lilac. These will frame the whole wall hanging so that it just stands out perfectly on your wall. And that's lavender and fern all finished. You can find the pattern link in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this springtime inspired project, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.